So you want to build a brand and you're trying to figure out how to start. Well, hopefully I can help, at least through my own experience of building a brand. For those who don't know me, my name is Spencer Phipps. I am the founder of the modern American heritage brand PHIPPS. We're still very small, but the brand at least is strong enough to have been named a finalist in this year's CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund. I was a finalist in the 2019 LVMH prize, and we've been worn by celebrities, and we're even on the cover of this month's GQ, which is pretty fucking cool. So we must be doing something right. Anyways, here's what I think you need to do to really start a brand. Now, before we get started, I would like to preface this with a bit of a warning. Building a brand is not for everyone. It's a lot of work, very time consuming. You need to eat, sleep, and breathe this thing. It's going to basically take over your life. So it's not for the faint of heart. But if you're okay with that, which I mean, I am, I did it, look at me, I'm still alive, then let's fucking go. Now, obviously, the first step is defining your product. You know, what the hell are you making? What are you selling? What are you doing? What is it? Are you a boat company? Are you a bakery? Are you a magazine? Are you shoes, menswear in my case? Like, what is it? Once you got that figured out, which should be pretty easy, you can then really get started. The next thing you do is find your purpose. You know, some people call it a USP, a unique selling point. And that really is just what makes you different. You know, what makes you special. And in order to do that, you need to understand the landscape of the industry that you're in. So if you're making boats, like what is the boat? You know, what are the brands that are doing that? So you can find a gap in that market that you can fill, you know, and really make it your own. And you can't copy anyone. That's, first of all, just dumb. And second of all, like, it already exists. Let me tell you a story. So before I founded PHIPPS, I worked for Dries Van Noten. And, you know, I can officially say now, as a sort of side note, I was the first and only American to ever work with him, which was kind of awesome thing to be able to say. But we were working on a collection one season and putting these things together. And we all had the idea of what the collection kind of wanted to be. And I went off and did a ton of research, and I came back and I was showing him stuff. And I had found like a shirt or something. I don't even remember what it was, but I showed it to him and he was like, yeah, I love it. That's exactly what we're aiming for. And it already exists. I was like, fuck. I think about that all the time because he was totally right. If something already exists, then like, what are you doing? You know, just doing it again. So you can adapt, you can evolve, you can come real close and be inspired by it, but copying something exactly is just, there's no point. When I started PHIPPS, I really wanted to build like an American icon, something that felt like it's been around forever and will be around for generations. And then within that context, I wanted to really celebrate the great American outdoors and that rugged and wild American spirit that, you know, really gives American style that unique edge. I love utility, I love workwear, I love vintage, I love products made with integrity. And I had all of that together to kind of define this outline. And once I had that outlined, I was able to move to the next step, which is understanding your audience. Now, understanding your audience is key. It's really important to know exactly who you're making these things for and how you want to talk to them. Because the way you talk to kids is very different from adults or whatever. You know, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different ways to break it down. But it's something that I actually wish I had done better at the beginning, because when I started PHIPPS, I was much more approaching this almost as an experiment. You know, you don't know this about me, but I am a massive introvert, and I've always been considered kind of an outsider. For me, building the brand was something that I was hoping would help me find my people. And I've been lucky enough that, like, as we've grown, people have come forward and sort of identified with the brand and said, hey, I'm a PHIPPS guy, and I know PHIPPS guys, and my brother or cousin, and, you know, this dude who lives down the road and runs around with no shoes on is a PHIPPS guy. Over time, I've been able to put faces to this community and really start, you know, doing things just for them. And that's actually been the most rewarding part of this whole process, I have to say, is learning who these people are and learning how fucking cool everyone is. So if you're supporting the brand, man, you're cool. And I thank you, really. Because once you have these like faces to this brand, you know, I mean, the sort of abstract concept of customers becomes very real. and you're able to learn their wants, their needs, their habits, their likes and dislikes, and really build this world for them. World building is really like a fancy word for understanding and having a strategy for every single way that someone can interact with your brand, from customers on your website, in your shop, on your social media. They buy something, like, how does that process go? And every single possible angle that you can think of, you want to be cohesive across everything. So everything really reinforces itself. I like to consider the brand as a living and breathing, almost like an organism, or like person. I tried to really identify all of those characteristics and quirks that really make up like a personality. So, you want to think about, what does your brand sound like? What type of music does your brand listen to? What does it eat? What are its favorite movies? How does it smell? And all of this then really determines the language. It gives you almost like a mood board guiding structure to every single thing that you do. Looking at PHIPPS with this adventurous sensibility and this, American timelessness, I found a font that we use for our main typeface. That's a font that was initially made for map making about 100 years ago. It's really old school. And the way that we talk about our products and photograph them and, use language and layouts and stuff comes from old, like, outdoor catalogs from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And even our logo, which, if you know the brand, you've seen our star logo, but it has this kind of new, classic American stars and stripes kind of feeling to it, I think, that people seem to tell me. But it's funny, actually, because it wasn't initially the case. When I started the brand, we were a little bit more science-based. I'll get to this later. But in my research on my first collection, I had discovered this incredible story. So I don't know if you know this, but you can basically go on the NASA website and like look at stars and star formations, just like almost like Google Maps, like just cruise through it. So there was this guy at home about 20, 30 years ago that was doing this and discovered that if you turn the Milky Way on its side, it kind of resembles an X, which is the shape of the logo. And I just love the story of, the entire history of astronomy. No one had ever considered turning the Milky Way on its side. And it took some random dude to literally discover an entire new way of looking at the universe, which is absolutely incredible. And I loved that story, and I put the thing in a graphic and then kind of used it as a decorative thing and a couple other things. And eventually someone asked me if that was the logo. And I was a bit like, yeah, I guess. Sure. And it's been like that ever since. This leads me to the next point, which is being open to evolution. Now, when you start a brand, you need to really understand that it's a journey, and there's going to be switchbacks and adjustments and things like that. And a really good example of that is when I started the brand, initially I had this idea of, on top of everything that we're doing, to really do almost like a high fashion National Geographic. So there was like a lot of science research going into every single collection. We did a collection about biology and extinct animals, and we did this whole thing about anthropology, geology and crystal formations, all of that. I even taught myself quantum physics and did this entire project with the Institute for Advanced Study. You know that place in Oppenheimer where they like filmed a bunch of stuff, like Albert Einstein was living there, and it's that kind of institution looking place. Those guys are very smart. I am not an astrophysicist. I learned that. And it was exhausting. It was so much work and so much concept that like it was overwhelming the product, and it's hard enough to run like a small business, period, let alone also teaching yourself quantum physics by your own choosing. So we stopped. And, I was worried that when I stopped, we would lose part of our identity or the core values, or, kind of lose a part of ourselves. And that hasn't been the case at all. In fact, I would say it's stronger. The message is simpler, easier for people to understand, and we can just focus on making really nice product instead of like building concepts for shit that just like confuse everybody after a while. It's important to, embrace evolution. Just like a person gets older and wiser and, maybe loses parts of their personality, we're still going to be the same. And I think if you trust the process and you trust your own instincts, you'll get there eventually. So I hope this video was helpful for you, and if it was, you should check out our website and follow us on other platforms. Obviously, like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll keep making these things for you guys. But in the meantime, that's it for this one.